Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. I'm super excited for this week's episode, or the next two episodes, I should say, because we got Stella back in the house, Guy's back in the house, and that means it's happy corner time. And we're talking about something we never even touched on, which is core values. How to actually create core values, how to track core values, how to use them in order to enhance your life. We'll talk about baby steps to success, how to stop comparing yourself to others, and what you need to do in order to truly make a large-scale, profound difference in the world. So without further ado, it's time for Happy Corner. Well, welcome back, everybody. Special day here at SatoriPrime land and the Performance Enhancing Podcast. Happy Corner. I've actually lost count of how many we've done, but it doesn't really matter. It's a happy corner time. So that means welcome Stella and welcome Guy.
Hello.
Thank you.
All right. So as always, these are completely unscripted, raw, and we just kind of see which way this goes, which is always really, really fun. So why don't we just start and see Stella? Let's do a little catch-up session. Tell us what you've been up to and dealing with, and
Okay.
We'll go from there.
Cool. So before we start, I was just telling the guys that this weekend was the first weekend that I attended a exercise workout class since I gave birth. Actually, it's the second, to be honest, but whatever. The first one, I don't know. But the difference is that I actually feel now ready to get back into the groove of exercising and enhancing the way I engage physically with my body. And what I realized in this journey, so I had a baby 7 months ago, and I gained over 55 pounds. And I didn't think I was going to gain that much weight. Like, my mom gained 40 pounds when she was pregnant, and I said, oh, no, I'm not going to gain that much. And then, of course, I gained even more. And and I was okay with it. I know that I'm going to come back to a weight that I'm more or less happy with. But what I realized in this journey, and this might not be totally articulated clearly, but here's where the conflict was. The conflict with the weight wasn't really about the weight. The conflict with the weight was, am I expressing myself visually in a way that brings me joy? And for me, I always love fashion, and I always love design, and I love beauty in general, whether it's beauty in nature, beauty in body, beauty in furniture. And when I would look at myself in the mirror naked, I'd be okay with it. I'd be like, my body's beautiful, even though it's a lot bigger and there's more rolls and things like that than there used to be. But when I would put on clothes or go about my day, I'd really look at myself with disgust. And real disgust. And that would actually ruin my mood for a day, or I would just feel down about myself in other domains of my life that had nothing to do with it.
Sure.
And the epiphany I had was that the reason why I'm not happy with the weight per se is not the weight. It's more just I'm not living in alignment with my value of beauty.
Mm.
And so what I did was, I knew that I did not have the time or energy to start working out immediately, nor did I want to put that pressure on myself, because I have a list of values that I live by, and I kind of created some expectations for myself following my pregnancy, and like pushing myself to work out was definitely not something I was going to do. But what I could do was buy some clothes that actually fit me that I liked, or put on makeup, even if I'm going to be home by myself all day, or just buy jewelry. When you weigh a lot more, jewelry's, always right? Like,
doesn't matter how spiritual you get, jewelry fixes everything.
Exactly. So I guess one of the things that I had to constantly check in about, though, was, is this cool? Like, cause I know that I could be taking more walks. Like I could be, lifting dumbbells while I'm like sitting at the computer, and like, I'd have to constantly check in with myself being like, am I just bullshitting cause I'm just too lazy? Or am I acting in alignment with what I think is right for me? And at the end of the day, I think I am acting in alignment with what is good for me. But there definitely was conflict, because there's so much pressure, social pressure, to lose the weight immediately, to not be overweight. And so it was a process, but it was great to go through. And I guess what I realized is that there's a point of readiness that we have to honor. And sometimes that readiness doesn't come when we want. And now I'm ready. Now I have more time and space and energy to be like, yeah, I'll go to that dance class right now. But if you asked me 1 month ago, like, I tried, like I literally signed up several times, and my friend kept asking me like every week or twice a week if I wanted to go. And I had to keep saying no, or sometimes I'd say yes and then I'd back out of it. Because I just wasn't ready. And so I guess there's a sense of readiness that we have to honor within ourselves, even if there's pressure, even if we feel pressure that we should be ready, but we're not, to just honor that. And the way that I guess I would say was useful for me to trust that was to know what my values are, and to adjust myself to be in accordance with those values, and knowing that there's multiple ways to fulfill those values. So my value of beauty, it's not just about being a certain way. It's also about wearing clothes that feel like this is my style, or, whatever. Like literally every day I would check in with myself and write in a journal, like, okay, how did I live my value of beauty today? I wore mascara when I went for a walk. Like, how did I live my value of like having special moments with Lenore? Like, we did this. So every day I check in on my values, and that was really helpful. So anyway, so that's been something I was struggling with, and I feel like I'm getting through to the other side. So hopefully when we next talk, I'll report that, yes, I've continued to go to dance class.
I'm a Zumba master. I have a couple of follow-up questions for you, because I have a feeling that there are tons of listeners out there, both men and women, who this is a issue for, or this is something that they've been struggling with. And you said a couple of things, and I just want, maybe you can give them clarity.
Yeah.
So one of the things I heard you say is, I wasn't ready, and now I'm ready.
Yeah.
Some people hear that in their head and they're just going, well, I'm not ready either. And other people, I have a sense, have been telling themselves they're not ready. And meanwhile, 5, 10, 20 years have gone by and the ready's not coming.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to hear it like, well, I'm not ready. So, I'm just going to sit on my potato chips all day. Because I know that that's not how you were handling it. So can you just clarify for people?
Yeah. Good question. Well, so I mentioned like I have a list of values. So when I do values work with myself or with my clients, I have people rank their values because there's inevitably going to be a conflict where you're not going to be able to meet everything, but you kind of have to choose what's more important. Mm. And so for me, following my giving birth, I reevaluated my values for this period. And so number one was taking care of my baby, making sure she's safe and healthy. Number two is taking care of my body, which meant eating good foods, like I did acupuncture because I felt like that was healing for me. I would try to get as much sleep as possible. So I tried to I was trying to survive this period. And then three was my business and growing my business, like getting back into the flow of work. And then four is like other relationships. So, and then five would be beauty. And so basically once I was feeling confident in my, like Lenore was set up, we have, what her needs are taken care of, like we have a rhythm, then I have enough energy and like my diet has always been pretty good. And then, things with my husband, like also are going great. That took a while because there's definitely some bumps in the road. So sorry, I don't know if I'm making sense. So basically the readiness came from once I was able to see that my top priorities were feeling established. And I had the energetic resources to say, okay, I have the energy, I have the time, or I can at least make the time. So let me give this a shot. And so I went to a class and the other thing is like, I chose something that I would enjoy. I'm just like, I think that for people who are hearing this and not feeling ready, I guess the question is it an excuse, or is it really about you being in alignment and choosing things that are most important to you? Mm-hmm. Like, so a lot of my clients come to me and they're like, I'm always putting myself second. Like that's a common thing. Like I'm always putting myself second. I'm never putting myself first, especially women. So then what you want to do is evaluate your values, and maybe putting yourself first should go to the top and not putting everyone else first. So if you're not feeling like you're doing what you really want to be doing, you need to reprioritize that and then see where the readiness falls in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also what I think that you did is every day you check in on what you did to fulfill on those values.
Right. Oh, thank you. Good point. So I still lived all my values every day, but I took baby steps. So like if my value was beauty, I was like, okay, today all I can handle is wearing a shirt that doesn't have spit up, that looks like, kind of nice and like feels like me and doesn't feel like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Or I'll put like mascara on just for myself. And so I was doing things. And that's the thing that I try to remind people of too, is that there's things that you're doing all day long in service of your deepest desire. So you just have to check in on that. And then you kind of gain some momentum, and then the opening starts opening more and more for your being able to take a bigger step.
Yeah. And I think that's really the important point here, is that for all those people that are using I'm not ready as an excuse, they're not taking the baby steps. Like if they were to check in every day and say, how did I live my value of beauty, or how did I live my value of health, or whatever? And they're like, well, I didn't do anything. Right? Then after you do that for 2-3 days, then maybe you got to really have a sit down with yourself and be like, I'm bullshitting myself. I'm saying that I want it. Yeah. And what I love about this, like, okay, I know you were talking about weight, but I'm also hearing it as relationships. People always say, I want to meet the one. I want to meet the one. And then what are you doing? I'm sitting at home 7 nights a week, ordering in. Like, what do you think? They're going to fall out of the sky? Like the delivery man you're going to fall in love with?
Yeah.
It's like, you got to do stuff. You could do this with anything. How do I live my value of success, or moving my business forward, or being a father or a mother, or whatever it is? You're either doing it or not doing it. And I love that, like, you gave yourself the time to deal with the other stuff. I personally believe we have a set amount of energy, period. And having 2 kids and knowing what it's like to have young children, I can tell you that it's really crazy to say this, but 2 people fall in love, right? And you share this amazing experience of oneness and partnership and all this beautiful thing. And then you decide, you know what? We're going to bring this other being into the world, which in a sense is a representation of your partnership, your union, or your love. Like, everything now goes into this being. And what I found to be fascinating, because my wife and I were talking about this during our last anniversary, is only this past like 6 to 9 months have we kind of seen ourselves come back to each other. Not that we were separate or just like, not like that, but you have a certain amount of energy and a certain amount of power, and your focus is so intentionally on this brand new baby. You put so much energy and love and like, you don't have enough to give everything to the baby and to each other. And it's really strange when we looked back at it, because we noticed it come back, right? And we were like, holy shit, that was not there for a while.
Yeah.
Rather than making yourself wrong, which I think a lot of people in whatever situation they are, they go to, I'm not this, I should be that. And it's just like all the world of make wrong and judging themselves, which just spins you into this whole other world of shit. Because now all you're looking for is all the ways that you're not that. And what I love that you did, even with this, it's like putting on mascara for yourself. That's a keeping the energy going in that direction. It's not like, oh, fuck it, it's over, I'm done, I give up. It's finding whatever way works with what you have. To keep going down that road. I think that's so smart. I'm actually going to write. I've never done this. I've never done this value thing.
I think it's so powerful. So I actually use an app called Day One, which is like a fun diary app. It's like a personal journal.
Cool.
But there's a few other apps. But you get to snap a picture and then just write a blurb about that picture. But I actually use it to answer like my 5 questions. So I take a picture, and then I'm also like, I'll literally be like, okay, Lenore, like shorthands, like beauty, business, and all, because I know what those stand for. And I check in every day. And it makes me feel before I go to bed that I've had some forward movement. And like last night I was doing it with my husband. I'm like, we had a rough day yesterday, and I was like, what special moments did we have today? Because I'm having a hard time. and we started talking, and I was like, oh yeah, that was so nice. And then he thought there was a special moment between us, which I didn't acknowledge as special. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. I didn't even realize. So, so it's a really nice way to go to bed, because you kind of begin to feel a little bit more.
For those on iPhones, there's another one called the 5-minute journal, which is really great as well. I don't think they're out on Android yet, but you can also buy like hardcover journals and do the same thing.
Exactly.
I'll check this out. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I don't think people... Guy, this is funny. This is what we were talking about before. Balance. Finding balance in what you do. And I was saying to Guy that recently I've been around some pretty successful, high-level entrepreneurs who are doing really, really well. And they all struggle with the fact that their business is kicking ass, but their relationships suck. They're giving up on friends. They don't get to see their kids. And to me, that's not even in the realm of okay. No amount of money and no amount of accomplishment in my workplace can give me enough to call that a life. And I might be crazy, and I know for a lot of people that just sounds like, well, but I said point blank to this guy, which kind of threw him back in his chair. I said, what are you running away from? Because people that tend to be really great at work tend to hide at work because they're not wanting to deal with all of these other things that are happening around them. There might be something in an intimate relationship. There might be a lack of an intimate relationship. There might be a shitty situation at home. Right? They want to stay where they're acknowledged and where their greatness is acknowledged. You come home, that person sees you exactly how you are. They don't give a shit how great you are at work. Right? I walk upstairs to my house, like I could have the best day of work ever. If my wife got something going on, I got something going on. And so I think finding balance in everything, and that's why I really like these values. I think it gives you an idea of where you prioritize and what you're giving your energy to on a daily basis.
Exactly. And so it's like your version of balance. And so that's what's so great about it. And you define it. And a lot of times when I start to do this with clients, it's like they'll start describing values, but they're not their own. They are values that they've been living by. Like, so your clients who work hard, or your students who are working really hard and prioritize work, maybe for them, success means working hard and working long hours, and that's all there is. So it's important to also ask yourself, what are the values I want to be living, not what am I living now? Because often we've assumed social values and parental values and whatever without even realizing it. And so we're running, and we've talked about this before on in our happy corners, it's like we're living other people's scripts. And so so this is a really nice way to pause and ask yourself, okay, what are the principles that I want to guide my behavior moving forward? Yeah.
Do you do this just at night, or do you do this in the morning as well?
I don't check in on the morning, but I running through my mind are those things. And so it's just like, I'm like, okay, here's so obviously working takes the majority of my day. And so I want to make sure when I'm working, I'm actually working on the right stuff. So in my values, what I ask myself is like, am I growing my business? So there's lots of things I could be doing for my business that aren't growing it. So I'm constantly asking myself, is this growth oriented? And then when I'm with Lenore, I'm like, am I really present? So, because it's easy to just, let her play and try to text or something. So they run throughout my day, kind of reminders, and then I kind of check in. But the other trap is that, and I think you mentioned it, is comparing yourself to other people. And you have to remember, it's so easy to feel like it's never enough. So, I would look at other moms on Facebook and be like, God, she looks so fucking good. And, and it's, you have to remember, by doing this check-in every day, you're like, okay, at least I'm moving the ball forward in my way, in accordance with what I have available to myself. And here's what I did today. So,
I'm interested that when you're doing it at the end of the night, are you doing it, are you checking in like, have you preset the values beforehand? Like a month ago, you said you sat down, you wrote down like, here are my values. And now you're always aligning it with that. It doesn't come to a point where you think to yourself, my values have changed, because obviously the older we get and whatnot. So how often are you checking in whether your values have changed?
I don't know if it's like, I don't set a calendar date, like, okay, every quarter I'm going to check in, but I will notice that sometimes the order begins to shift for me. And so that may be because, life changes. And so the things, so like the order may naturally change. And so I'll just acknowledge that to myself. But, formally, like I work with clients on a 6-month basis. And so when we start, we do a program, and then like if they renew, then I'm like, okay, let's check in on these things. But if I also notice that people are not, the thing is, like, you'll do your best to write a list, but you're going to miss some things, like you forget, or it's not top of mind. And so like I was just working with someone who was telling me we were coming up with the business ideas for her. I worked with her for 6 months, and I just heard how important it is for her to work with her hands. Like, this is the first time I heard it. And I was like, oh my God, well, we have to add that into your, into the things that are important to you, because I want to make sure you're doing that, like regularly, working with your hands. So I think just being aware, like, okay, if this is a running theme, let me add it to the list. So I do it a little bit more organically because I'm listening. It's like listening to yourself or listening to others, and
listening for a possibility, that kind of thing.
It's interesting. You're talking about the woman on Facebook that you saw and you're like, oh my God, she's so skinny. I'm just trying to put this all in the context of this conversation. If that woman, and she probably was completely subconscious and she has no idea about these values, for example, but for her, that value was probably much higher on the list at that time. So I know, for example, for people that are in fitness competitions, right? Like that's number 1, number 2.
Exactly.
Falls way down there.
Yes.
Not right, not wrong. It's just that's how their life. So for certain moms, there's a certain percentage, the first priority, they're like, they don't care about job. They're like, baby out, I'm going back to 6-pack abs.
Yes, exactly.
Because
exactly.
That's top priority, top value.
Yeah. Like celebrities.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And no judgment. No judgment.
Not at all.
But it's like, we all put our, you get to put your energy where your priorities are. And so, and exactly, you can't compare, like, exactly. And so maybe she doesn't have a business to run, or maybe she's not breastfeeding and she doesn't, whatever. It's, and it's not about validating. It's just saying that, exactly, good point. Like, you don't know what other people's values are, and you just have to keep reminding yourself when you are really feeling authentic and true to your values, feels like a very safe place. You're like, okay, that's right. This is what's important to me. And I know it's important for this reason. And I know I'm acting every day for that. Mm-hmm. And this is my combo of balance. I'm not living anyone else's combination of balance.
Yeah. And the checking in, what's nice is it keeps you honest, because if you say it's on your value list, and like I said before, you're not doing it day 1, you're not doing it day 2, you're not doing it day 3, that's like a red flag, right? You need to really sit down there and kind of look at it. Where on the flip side of that, if every day you're doing something, that something is going to lead to something a little bit more. And that something is going to lead you to something a little bit more. So eventually, like you said early in the conversation, once certain things are taken care of, it allows other things to kind of move up on the list. We train a lot of people on how to build online businesses and specifically passion-based businesses. The reason we are so passionate about teaching marketing, which sounds like the least sexy thing in the world, is because it gives people tools to live a life of freedom, a life that they want the way they design it. Now, when we first talk to people and we try to imbue them with this concept of like, you're going to have this huge life and you're going to be able to make all this impact and difference in the world, they can't hear that at all. And we didn't realize that early on because they need to deal with home, right? They need to deal with the fact that they can't pay their bills. They can't fucking think about other people.
Yes.
And at first I was like, think bigger, think bigger. And then I went, they can't think bigger. Because priority number one right now, right in front of their nose is my life is in shambles.
Yes.
How you want me to go? So it took us a little bit to realize when we were coaching people that you got to give them tools to handle home.
Yes.
Handle
That's
home.
so wise. Yeah.
Now the blinders are off. I got this taken care of. I got more energy. Now let's share that energy.
I got more time.
Yeah, I got more time.
Yeah.
I got more. Now,
and that aligns with a lot of experience that I've had in spiritual practices too. It always starts with self, moves into the idea of community, and then kind of, for some people, breaks through and moves into the idea of global transformation or country transformation or political transformation or whatever it is, but like the world at large and how that could impact people. And it's funny because every time I've ever started any spiritual practice, it's in the same order. I always have the experience of taking care of self, then taking care of people, then taking care of like much broader ideas. So I'm totally aligned with that too.
Yeah. I just want to read you this amazing quote that my wife never, ever, ever sends me quotes. And I just found out today that they have an email at her law firm, quote of the day. She's been there for like a year and a half. This is the first time I've ever gotten this. I'm not kidding you guys. This is the quote I get today. She sends me from this guy, James Baraz. I've never heard of him, but I guess he's kind of like a big deal. It reads, mindfulness is simply being aware of what is happening right now without wishing it were different. Enjoying the pleasant without holding on when it changes, which it will. Being with the unpleasant without fearing it will always be this way, which it won't.
Oh, that's so nice. I got chills.
Well said, right?
Yeah, really nice. I love that
idea of temporality. And, that's kind of what I keep hearing it that you did, Stella, which is you took a look at what you had at that moment and where a lot of people will go to make it wrong and kind of future think like, oh, I'm always going to be this way. This is not going to happen. All your languaging is, I know this is going to change. I know, but right now, if I'm listening to me and I'm true and authentic with myself, I'm not ready to take that on yet.
Yeah.
And beating yourself up, but just doing the little things that still make you feel good in that arena.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good practice and attitude of gratitude.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Bold share, Stella. Bold share.
Big and bold share.
Yeah. I mean, I just know that weight for men too, but for women, it's especially after birth and having a wife that went through it. It's such a thing. Like there's a whole world around it. And every mother, I know when we had a bunch of mothers all at the same time, it was just such a conversation piece.
Yeah.
So I absolutely know that it's something so many people struggle with, but I hope that people can take more than just that and really try to map that conversation onto any area of life that they're just struggling with at the moment, because you can
and I think
formula.
I think that's a really good point. This is not, so I don't think I really feel like I had so much struggle with my weight. But I think when people are really struggling, not everybody, because there's all sorts of health issues and there's all sorts
Yeah.
of stuff, but like sometimes when we're really struggling, and this kind of goes back to a point you were saying, Lon, I don't know if it was when we were just getting started but is it really about the weight? Like, what else is it about? Because if you're really, really struggling, maybe it's about something else. And I was talking to a woman about potentially coaching, and I was like, well, what are the things you really want to address? And she's like, I really want to lose weight, and I've been really, really struggling with it. And I'm like, okay, but what is behind the weight? What is it that you really want to? What's the quality of experience you want to have when you lose the weight? And she's like, well, I want to be more happy, and I want to look at life more positive. And I'm like, so do you think losing weight will get you there? And she's like, well, when I was 40 pounds lighter, I still had these issues. And I was like, oh, okay. So what else can you do to actually change your perspective? Maybe those are things we can work on while addressing your weight thing. But really the issue was like her perspective, how she was looking at certain situations. And we sometimes attach weight to something that has nothing to do with the weight.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was sharing that before we got online about that book.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
So now people are like, what book?
I
want to know. I'm in the process of reading a book called The Culture Code, which I'll actually do a separate podcast on because it really is one of the better ones that I've read in a long, long time. It's predominantly a marketing book, but the guy talks about how everything in life, no matter what, there's always an emotional tie when we first experience it. So I'll give you an example that everyone knows: chocolate. Chocolate's something that just is emotionally tied. I bet if anyone actually ate their like childhood favorite piece of chocolate or like one of those, it would flood your brain with so much dopamine. Like it just brings you back. Likewise, if you smell your mom making a certain dish in the kitchen, instant transportation, right? Transportation. Yeah. And what this guy does is he studies these emotional ties in every culture. So in every country, it's very different. So our relationship to food in the US is very different than people in Germany or France. Likewise, alcohol. But overweight, which is something he was dealing with or talking about in the book, and the culture code for obesity or being overweight in this country is checking out. Checking out meaning that you're dealing with some sort of stress, you're dealing with some sort of issue, and then in order not to deal with that direct issue. So like people that lose jobs, he actually uses the example of Al Gore. When Al Gore lost the presidency, Al Gore basically came back on an interview and was something like 30 pounds overweight, and just bearded up and just checked out, right? Like lost the election, had this whole life plan, checked out. When he went back on that, I forgot the movie, but he started becoming like the environmentalist and went on this whole parade. Next time you saw him, it was the Al Gore you remember, buttoned up, right? So checking out is not final, kind of like the quote that we just read. You can check back in, and you see when people check back in. It is physically represented when people check back in. And you can look at, anybody in the limelight, you will see this happening all the time. And to Stella's point, it always is because of something. People just don't go out and gorge themselves because it feels good, right? It's like some sort of reaction to some sort of action or a response to some sort of action. So really fascinating book. I'll talk more about it in future podcasts, but for anyone that wants to pick it up. Yeah, so like I said, I'll definitely talk more about the Culture Code book and give you guys more synopsis just on that in a further down the road podcast. But I hope that what you were able to get from this is not just the weight loss. Just use weight loss as the example, but I hope you can see how valid this is in any area of life that you are struggling with right now. that whole concept of being ready, not ready, giving yourself that space, not making yourself wrong, but just baby stepping it till you have the energy and the wherewithal and the knowledge and the skills to move that, what might seem to you right now like a boulder, forward. But if you were just chipping away at that boulder day in and day out, right, how far would that take you? So we'll be back in part 2 and continue a different cut of this conversation. Guy's going to actually bring something to the table around balance and finding inspiration and passion and how to do that. So make sure you come back and check out part 2 of Happy Corner. Till then, have an amazing, amazing day.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.